Let's talk supply chain.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Supply Chain. Super excited because I am here on site at the Women in Supply Chain Forum in Atlanta with Alexia, and we're going to get to you in just a minute. But I want to ask you all a question. We ask you a question at the top of every single show. And port piracy is a major issue for brands and consumers, especially during peak season, when package theft spikes through the roof. But how many packages were stolen in 2023 according to CNBC? Well, it's a really, really interesting one, and I'm going to give you the answer to that question at the end of the show. But now we have to get to Alexia and what you're doing in the industry. So why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, a little bit about the company that you work for?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my name is Alexia McLaughlin. I'm the head of enterprise sales at a logistics tech company called Veho. We are revolutionizing last mile delivery to put the customer in the center of everything. And I like to compare it to like essentially Uber and UPS. If they had a baby, it'd be Veho.
Okay.
We are basically giving customers that visibility, that control of the whole delivery experience that they want. We're also doing it in a way that's incredibly fast. So customers want fast delivery.
Yes, they do.
Amazon Prime has built so much loyalty because of that experience, because of that visibility. And so we're giving brands, top-notch brands like Lululemon, an opportunity to deliver to the customer doorstep and really raise the bar of the delivery experience around that.
Awesome. I mean, customer experience is so important these days. I mean, sometimes our consumer demands can be a little bit much. I mean, really, you know what I mean?
Totally.
But that customer experience is super important. And I love to hear that you are a part of that and like putting the customer first. It's what brands are really thinking about, what's top of mind for them. Now, I think you've had a journey in sales for the most part of your career. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I feel like you've probably been through some things, you've seen some things, had some ups and downs. Can you sort of just walk us through your journey? How did you start? Where did you start? And then now you're in technology, so.
Yeah. So I will say I never thought I was going to be in sales. I think I had kind of, the notion of like a used car salesman, like no one wants to be a salesperson with that kind of connotation of a salesperson in your mind.
Right.
But when I was, coming out of college, I went to the University of Texas in Austin. I was really involved in the startup environment there and looking for a job. And, I decided, sales is a great skill to have. A bunch of my mentors, my father, a bunch of people who I really admire their careers. A lot of them started in sales. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I don't know that I'll love it, but I'm going to learn a lot through it. And so, I wanted to stay in Austin, Texas. And so Oracle was hiring. They hire hundreds of college kids, right out of school at a time. They put you through a really intense training and development program.
I mean, that must have been fantastic, though.
It was great. And I got to stay in Austin, Texas, too.
Okay.
Which is, a great city that I was spending some time in. So I did that, but I only did it for a year. And I didn't really love, I kind of felt like an ant on an ant farm. You are just one of the many. It's really difficult to see your impact.
Okay.
And it just seemed it lacked a little bit of innovation in my role. And so I thought, okay, I want to go to the East Coast. I had interned in New York in magazines before. Like, that's truly how I thought I was never going to be in sales.
But it's cold.
It's cold.
Why did we make the transition from warm to cold?
It's a good question. Maybe I missed the seasons.
I like the other way around. I'm going for warm now. I don't want cold anymore.
I totally get that. But something about it, the East Coast was calling me back.
Okay.
So, by a random way of coincidences, I got connected with a really early stage startup called Jebbit. It was a customer experience platform. So while at Oracle, I was selling to chief technology officers, very just technical products.
I mean, that's pretty cool for just being out of school.
Yeah.
To be talking to CTOs, selling to CTOs.
It was a great experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of the assistant seller. You're doing the dirty work, but it was a great entry point. Learned a lot. And then I wanted to actually do the selling, and I didn't want to sell something that was so technical and so just, kind of boring in that sense. Customer experience I thought was really interesting. And so this early stage startup they really wanted to start being able to sell to retail and cosmetic brands and like the brands that I loved as an e-commerce shopper.
Right.
So they took a chance on me and hired me to help them kind of break into that segment. And I loved it. I was there for 4 years, a little over 4 years. And then I got a really interesting LinkedIn message from a great recruiter.
Love LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Right?
who did the perfect little elevator pitch. And that brought me to Veho, and they were looking for, a foundational member of the team to start selling. It had been founder-led sales the entire time. So the CEO and co-founder had done all the
I know
selling.
all about that.
I'm sure. And they really wanted someone who could also help them sell into retail and e-commerce brands, as I had done before, because their customer base at that time was primarily like perishable companies.
Okay.
So again, I wanted that opportunity to.
Did you get to move back to Warm?
I didn't.
Oh,
I stayed in Boston. So
Boston.
never left the cold.
Okay.
Yes, but I do spend a lot of time in warm places.
So okay, good. I love that. No, I'm definitely at the point of my life and my career where I don't want to see another piece of snow.
Yes,
ever. I'll be very
totally.
So when you made that transition from into New York from Austin, Texas, was it a bit of a culture shock? Like you've kind of stayed with technology within your sales career, right?
Yeah.
How was the culture? Like what was the workplace culture like from moving from an Oracle, like a big company, into the organization that you joined in New York, and then even further, you went more into startup world when you joined Veho.
Yeah, so it's very different. When you're working for a really big company, there's lots of layers. Like you don't even really know who your boss's boss is. Like there's just tons of people, very bureaucratic. There's a lot of structure and process, which is good in some ways. But I kind of wanted the ambiguity. And so both of my jobs after Oracle were very ambiguous. You were building while you were, steering the ship. You were really figuring it out
wearing
as you
a few
go.
hats.
Exactly. And that was exciting to me because every day was different. So instead of, walking into Oracle and trying to call some chief technology officers to buy Oracle, it was like, no one at my other companies had heard of the company. Now Veho has some name recognition, but early on it really didn't. And so you were really challenged to, communicate the value of the company, to really learn as you go. We had to adjust our entire operations when we started working with retail and apparel brands at Veho.
Right.
So there's also this internal motion that you have to do where you're selling internally a ton and convincing like the operations, hey, we need to start accepting floor loaded drop trailers. And they're like, I don't want to do that. And you're like, we have to do it. Like, this is the natural evolution. Here's the business case behind it. And so that was really fun for me because even in the last 3 years that I've been with Veho, I joined pre-air Series A, pre-air Series B, and we've just evolved so much as a company. And when you're on the front line selling and then coming back to the business and like helping inform the products and the offerings that we build, that's a role that drives impact. And that's exactly what I want.
So talk to us about that impact, right? Because like you said, you're able to bring innovation to a company and it's not always accepted, right? Like you were saying, it's a little bit difficult sometimes to get buy-in. But I know with transition and building a company, there's always that element of sort of change management. But in a startup, I feel like it's a lot quicker. Did you find that too? Like that was something that you really enjoyed, like talking through and having those uncomfortable conversations to get to where you needed to be.
For sure. And there was definitely a lot of trial and error. Like we would try to make a case being like, I've heard it from so many, brands, this is what they want. But then we'd have to show the data. And we'd have to also show like the revenue opportunity if we can do this. So, one experience that I had, which is like definitely a highlight, my time at Veho, is we had to stand up an entire region to support a massive customer that we were bringing
An
on.
entire region? Like, are we talking
region.
Continent? Are we talking state?
Good. Entire
what are we
delivery
talking?
region. So like a set of, last mile delivery markets in the Northeast.
Okay.
There was like 12 of them.
All right.
And we had to stand up like warehouse operations, drivers. Like there was a lot of work involved in doing that. But we had to do it to win the business and to win the opportunity to work with that customer. And so that was an effort that I have never, had never led before that time, having to convince the business, hey, we need to do this and it's going to cost us millions of dollars, but we're going to, get some revenue in return.
Right.
And then also just the risk around, having to
Yeah.
really manage the risk. Like I had to have such certainty in that deal that we were working that wasn't going to slip. And then
Right.
we were going to be in a region with no packages, because that would be a nightmare too. So a lot of management, a lot of expectation management,
Yeah.
and a lot of just like learning and building the business cases.
So how did you deal with that risk? Because at the end of the day, you're bringing that idea to the company, and it's awesome that they, listened to you and gave you the opportunity to bring that to them, and that they ultimately said yes. But at the end of the day, you still need to sleep at night knowing
Oh, yeah.
that you're responsible for this, and you're asking the company to take a really big risk,
Totally.
not only on these regions, but basically on you.
Oh, yeah.
And like, if it doesn't work out, like, what's going to happen?
For sure.
How did you work through that in your mind to have the confidence, to take it to them and be like, I think that we really need to do that. But then also to sort of, deal with that risk factor that you would be responsible for this.
Oh, for sure. And I was going on maternity leave later in the year too. So I was truly going to launch this.
You had
hormones. So
hormones?
it had to go well, or else that was going to be the worst leave ever. I think it just forces you to be a really good salesperson. Like,
Okay.
Even though I've been in sales, I think the difference in all of the companies I've been at before is you have to be really consultative. If you're selling a product, it's a very different product, and from tech, from customer experience to like a logistics solution. And you need to know the right questions to ask your buyer. You need to get their commitment to doing things. You need to get that in writing in contracts. Right. You need to make sure that they're getting such strong return on their investment in Veho that there's no question about them pulling out. You need to have alignment at all levels of the organization that this is going to happen. And it's, this is a strategic partnership. We're not going to drop out now, and ruin the thing we've spent 8 months building at this point. So all of that kind of comes into play. And I mean, I do think the one thing that helps is the more time you spend, the more resources you're dedicating to something, the harder it gets to pull back. So as long as we just made sure we were very clear on the business value and what needed to happen, neither party was going to walk away.
Well, and you kind of went on maternity leave. You're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build up to this. Bye, peace.
I watched the launch. I will say I was there for launch. It was successful. It scaled a bit. And then I left. I was like, okay, I can feel good about being done for a little bit.
Where did you find that confidence, though? Like, if we're thinking about the audience sort of watching this, right, and learning from you, where did you gain that confidence? Where did you find your voice, and what would you say to them watching?
Yeah, so I think in order to build that confidence, a few things. One, I think you need to have like conviction in your ability to communicate what you're the message you want to get across, and like the importance and the why behind what you're doing. And that's definitely trial and error. The message might not resonate the first time you share it, but then maybe the second time with more data, with more input, like it will. I've also been lucky enough to have like really good mentors in my life who give me feedback and who also like raise me up and who support me, that they, instill in me the confidence that I need, which has been helpful. And then finally, I mean, part of it is just by nature of a career in sales for, those who are sellers as well. No one's comfortable at the start of that career. You're cold calling. You're like doing all these things,
days.
Right? Like you're so out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I don't know at what point in my career, but there was definitely like a turning point where I started owning it.
Okay.
And not being like, and having an impersonator syndrome of like not feeling like I was doing something true to myself. I was like, no, I am a salesperson, but I'm going to be the best one that they've ever worked with. And they're going to love me because I'm not going to do XYZ things that they might associate with that. So I think part of it is also just like with time and with, focus on improving what you do every day, like it builds your confidence.
Well, I think also what you say to yourself.
Totally.
Right? You were like, I got this. I am the best salesperson.
Right? There's no choice. Like you have to do this. You have to do it well. So how are you going to do that? And you
love that.
Prep and you practice, and so you feel good about it.
Yeah. So what's one of your biggest accomplishments? What are you most proud of? I mean, that story that you just told is pretty epic. So I don't know how you're going to top that, but I'm pretty sure you have one.
I will say, so, overarching biggest accomplishment would be, I think I've contributed really meaningfully to Veho, like 5xing their growth in the last 3 years since I've joined.
Wow.
And that's been really exciting. I mean, for a while, I was a one-man team, two-man team. Like we were very small and we were responsible for driving the entire revenue of the business. But I also couldn't do that without a team. And so I think my other biggest accomplishment is now the fact that I get to manage a team,
Right.
Watch them succeed. I hired a couple of sales reps earlier this year and they're doing so well. And
Awesome.
like, that makes me really happy because if we can make it a repeatable process and like show them how to succeed and give them the tools that they need to succeed, it's not only great for them to build their confidence, they're having more conversations, it's going well, the clients are interested, but then it's also great for Veho because obviously at the end of the day, there's a growth story here and we need to continue that growth story to eventually have the impact that the company wants to.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to make that impact with the team. Now, one of the things that you said that you five times the growth, I think. One of the things that I think us women do not do very well is really count our accomplishments or really understand the impact and the value of those accomplishments. Now, you use that specifically. And so to anybody watching, what would you say to them to take account of throughout their journey to make sure that they've got stats and numbers like that? Because I think that's really important, right? It's a way for us to speak to ourselves or go back to it and say, no, you know what? I did this.
Yeah.
And we don't do that.
No, we don't.
And so, like, what would you say to them? Because you just said 5 times 5x the growth. That's a pretty big number. That's a real number. It's something that you contributed in the impact that you made. I think people need to do, like, we need more women doing that.
Yeah, I think part of it is just stopping to reflect on like where you've been and where you're going. And, when giving yourself time to celebrate yourself and like what you've done, because no one's journey is easy and everyone's journey is a little different. But if you can show that you started here and you're there, like you should feel really good about that. That also should build your confidence to what you were saying earlier. Our CEO, is very adamant about like, think about what you're doing every day because every day counts. What is the impact that you're driving every day? Do you know that you're driving impact? And how do you measure that? Every team, every company has different like metrics for that.
And so, if you don't, ask,
how can I be doing more? How can I drive more impact?
Or also like, what's the impact that you think that I'm making?
Right.
Right? Because if we can't see it for ourselves, we got to ask somebody else.
Yes. And I also think that's where like great managers and mentors come into place too, because sometimes if you can't see it for yourself, it takes other people recognizing you and saying you did a great job on it. Wow. And I think at being at the Women in Supply Chain Forum here, it's really important to do that and to call that out when you see that, because that doesn't happen every day.
So did you, when you reflect on your career so far, have you had any like big challenges that you've had to tackle? And do you have a story around that you can share with us?
Big challenges. I mean, just like so many times of doubt and like thinking like, I'm done with sales. This is it. I'm done.
Self-doubt is rampant,
Self-doubt.
right?
I mean, I think in a lot of industries and a lot of fields, it's probably similar, but like sales is like an up and down roller coaster. Like you get the high of closing a deal and winning some business, and then you get the low of like losing everything and that thing that was supposed to happen that didn't happen. And like, oh my gosh, how did I let it slip through the cracks? And there's so much visibility in a lot of those roles too. So definitely a whole lot of that. And I think, again, just being able to acknowledge like to yourself, where did I go wrong or what am I doing well? And just always think of like continuous improvement and getting better. And, that's helpful. But oh my gosh, yeah, like 1,000 little failures along the way. Also, there was times in my career where I really wanted to move up and to manage, and either I wasn't at the right company or I wasn't, in the right role to do that, or I hadn't like earned the right to ask for that. So there was also a lot of that as well, I think, throughout.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think one of the things that's important to you is a culture of excellence. How do you foster that? Like, how do you bring that to your team, and how do you explain what excellence actually looks like and means? Because we can say that, right? We can say a culture of excellence, but it means different things to different people. And so how do you foster that?
I think you have to lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really just explaining, hey, this is what the best in the world, project outcome could look like. It's showing it. So, I think again about like this team of relatively new hires, and there's only so much that you can actually do in the onboarding and the training
Mm-hmm.
process. Like the rest has to come from them seeing excellence, not only from their manager, but throughout the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like if everyone is operating at a high bar and that's
Mm-hmm.
the expectation, it's you start to learn through observing.
Right.
These are the actions that are celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
This is the caliber of the team. And if you hire great, hungry people who, want to operate at that level, then there's like this nice,
Mm.
healthy kind of like simulating environment where like people are working together. They're all like operating at a high level. They see what excellence looks like in every part of the organization.
Right. But you're also going to see who doesn't fit within that culture as well.
Yes, 100%.
Very easily, which is a big deal, right? Because it doesn't mean that they're the wrong fit for anything. It just means they might not be the right fit for that organization,
Yeah.
right? And if both parties can figure that out pretty quickly, it's so much better on both sides.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
it really does take a certain type of person to do certain types of roles in every different company, and that looks different at every different company. So, I mean, we had made so many mistakes on the hiring front. We have done so many things. And it's, again, to your point, some of these people, incredibly qualified, amazing people. It was the culture fit was
Yeah.
missing. And that's a really hard, like you can't train someone how to be,
Right.
like that's no, you have to find the right people up front. And I think that's really important because, yeah, at the end of the day, if you're like trying to make something work and it's not working for either party,
Yeah.
it's like you're both kind of wasting time. You're both not really doing your best. You're both not really happy in that role or in that seat. So, yeah, I think also the sooner you recognize that,
Yeah.
the better for you too.
So, you are the winner of the Rising Star Awards here for the Women in Supply Chain. Now, talk to me about what that award means to you and then any advice that you would have for anybody following in your footsteps.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I was very new to supply chain less than 4 years ago. And so I'm really like humbled and honored to
Such an
be getting
accomplishment.
this
Yeah.
award, honestly. And I think the learning is if you work really hard and you surround yourself with people who bring you up and who give you opportunities to learn and to grow, that you can really, get that recognition and have those opportunities faster than you ever thought was possible. So
Awesome.
it's really been an honor.
And so, what advice would you have for anybody sort of following in your footsteps? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think it's so important to surround yourself with people who bring you up, basically, who give you the opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise have. Like I've been lucky enough, I was nominated for this award by my company, by my manager,
Right.
who, gives me feedback, helps me improve, helps me get
Mhm.
better, tells me what she sees for me. And, going back to building confidence, I think that's really important to have a great support system. And so find that is my piece of advice. If you don't have a very clear mentor, don't have a very clear supporter at your company, like find someone who you admire, who you can learn from, and
Yeah.
who really invests the time in you
And can
to help
advocate
you.
for you
Yes, exactly.
too, right?
100%.
Yeah. All right. Last question.
Okay.
What does the future hold for Alexia?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. So I'm on this ride with Veho right now, and it's been the most exciting journey of my career. I hope in the next 5 years, we are ringing the bell at the stock exchange and really have been able to take what's a regional delivery company into a nationwide company that's rivaling FedEx and UPS and just had totally set a new standard for delivery. So that's, short term, 5 year,
I love your
hopefully.
passion for that.
Oh
That's
yeah. I
awesome.
mean, we're in it together. We have this big mission. And so seeing that come to fruition is what's next for me, 100%.
Awesome. Well, I have loved to get to know you and get to know your journey and just the advice. So I want to acknowledge and appreciate you for coming on here, sharing about that journey, sharing some advice, answering some questions around confidence and, some of the things that is top of mind for a lot of professional women in supply chain. So, did you guys have a guess at today's big question? So at the top of the show, I asked you, porch piracy is a major issue for brands and consumers, but how many packages were stolen in 2023 according to CNBC? Well, it's a huge 260 million. Like you have 330 million people, I think, in America right now.
Yeah.
It's almost the amount of people that you have in this country. That is a crazy number. And according to Forbes, porch piracy resulted in over $9 billion in losses in 2023. So I, for one, am happy to see that we've got technology on the horizon that's going to help with that and move us into the future and hopefully bring those numbers down. Alexia, thank you so much for joining me here at the Woman in Supply Chain Forum on our Woman in Supply Chain series.
Thank you so much for having me.